It was a dark and cold night. The trees around the house creaked under the touch of the wind, which hissed as if warning of something terrible about to happen. The house, isolated and surrounded by vast fields, was quiet, immersed in a deep silence. Only one window showed light, the room of the eldest daughter, Mariana, a 17-year-old dreamer with a smile that always brightened the gloomy days of anyone around her. That night, however, there would be no smiles. While Mariana read calmly in her bed, a shadow approached stealthily. The man, a predator, seemed to absorb the darkness around him, moving without making a sound. He carried with him an aura of pure evil, a coldness that exuded from his eyes like cutting ice. Upon reaching the window of the room, he paused for a moment, admiring his future victim with a disturbing and hungry gaze. Mariana, distracted in her reading, did not perceive the imminent danger. When she finally heard the creaking of the window opening, it was too late. The man was already inside, his dense breath filling the air, like a living shadow, bringing with him a deadly chill. He watched her with a macabre smile, a distorted and cruel pleasure that froze even the deepest part of the soul. Terrified, Mariana tried to scream, but her voice died in a whisper, as if the night itself was suffocating her. The man approached her, each step slower and more threatening, his face devoid of any trace of compassion. There in that room, the young girl fought, begged for her life, but nothing could move the heart of the monster before her. He was insensitive to fear, to tears, to pain. The silence that had previously hung over the house was filled with sighs of despair, with brief muffled screams, until finally the night returned to being silent, cold, and deadly. The predator, satisfied, left the house like a shadow, disappearing into the darkness as easily as he had come. Hours later at dawn, Mariana's parents returned home, unaware of the tragedy that had unfolded. Upon opening the door, the father, Júlio, felt a strange chill, a sense of emptiness, as if something terrible awaited him. He called for his daughter, but silence was the only response. Climbing the stairs, he felt his heart race, a horrible premonition growing with each step. When he opened the door to Mariana's room, horror consumed him completely. His daughter's body was there, inert, pale, marked by brutality. Julio's world crumbled in an instant. A wave of despair and rage took over his being. The pain of loss transformed into hatred, an overwhelming desire for justice, or rather, for revenge. He would not rest until he found the monster who destroyed his family, until he made the murderer feel all the pain he now carried in his chest. The police, unable to find the culprit, left the case unsolved. But for Júlio, the search was just beginning. Júlio spent days, weeks, months in an unrelenting search. Every clue, no matter how small, was analyzed. Every suspicious person was interrogated. He consumed himself with rage and sadness, driven only by the memory of Mariana. Those who knew him saw how he withered, a once strong and kind man, now transformed into a shadow of himself, dominated by the thirst for revenge. In his mind, there was no forgiveness. There was no compassion for the monster who took his daughter. He needed to find him. He needed to deliver justice with his own hands. One night, after months of searching, Júlio found a lead. A man with a violent history and a cold gaze that sent shivers down his spine. He knew it was him. That was the demon who had taken his daughter. Júlio followed him, waiting for the right moment until he finally confronted him in a deserted street. The murderer showed no remorse, nor fear, only the same wicked smile that haunted his nightmares. With his face bathed in tears of rage and hatred, Júlio grabbed the man, determined to end him right there, to deliver brutal justice. But suddenly something unexpected happened. A gentle breeze blew down the street, and Júlio felt a warm sensation on his shoulder. He turned his face and, amidst the darkness, saw a figure that made him tremble. It was Mariana. She was there, serene, enveloped in a soft light, as if she were at peace. Her face showed compassion, and her eyes, which once sparkled with joy, now shone with unwavering kindness. "Father," she whispered, her voice sweet and comforting, "I am fine. I am at peace beside God. I don't want you to destroy yourself because of me." Mariana's words pierced Julio's heart like a knife. He found himself torn, shattered between the desire for revenge and the love for his daughter, who was now asking him to forgive. He felt his strength wavering, his once steady hands beginning to tremble. How could he forgive that man? How could he let the monster go unpunished? But looking at his daughter's serene face, something changed within him. A peace, albeit faint, began to replace the anger. Mariana, in her gentle tone, asked one last time, "Forgive, Father. Move on in peace. Let God take care of him." And then slowly, the figure of his daughter disappeared, leaving Julio on his knees, alone, but in a way, at peace. The anger that consumed him began to dissipate, giving way to a painful but necessary acceptance. He stood up, looked at the murderer with a vacant stare, and walked away, leaving the judgment in the hands of a greater force. He knew he would never forget what that man had done, but he also knew he needed to live, for the love of his daughter, for the peace she had asked of him. After that night, Julio returned home, but he was a different man. He felt exhausted, as if years had passed in a single moment. The house that had once been full of life and joy now seemed shrouded in a sad, almost heavy aura. Every corner, every detail of Mariana's room brought memories of the lost daughter. However, he also felt something new, a strange serenity, as if his daughter's spirit were present, supporting him. He knew that Mariana was at peace, and this certainty was what kept him standing, resisting the abyss of sadness that still lingered around him. Time passed, and gradually, Julio began to transform the pain into something deeper. In honor of Mariana, he decided to dedicate his life to helping families who had also lost their loved ones in tragic ways. He created an organization to support grieving parents, offering them a shoulder to cry on, the comfort he had longed to receive. It was his way of keeping Mariana's memory alive and giving purpose to the pain he felt. No matter how difficult it was, he felt he was honoring his daughter's request. One day during a support meeting, a woman with a pained look approached Julio and shared her own story. She too had lost a daughter, a victim of a brutal crime, and was struggling to move forward. Julio listened attentively and at the end shared his experience and the words of forgiveness he had received from Mariana. As he recalled his daughter's appearance, Julio felt a deep comfort, as if she were by his side guiding him. The woman thanked him, and seeing her break into a faint smile of gratitude, he realized that his path now was to help heal the wounds of others, just as Mariana had healed his. Years passed, and Julio aged amidst stories of pain and redemption, comforting other souls in suffering. Each time he felt the weight of loss pressing on his chest, he remembered Mariana's serene face and the words of forgiveness she had spoken to him that night. Thus his pain became a beacon of light in the darkness, guiding others to find solace, to transform hatred and anguish into a force of compassion and love. At the end of his life, Julio departed in peace, knowing he had honored his daughter's memory. In his last breath, he felt as if he saw Mariana one last time, smiling at him with the same kind light that had always illuminated his heart. And when his eyes closed, he was certain that he was finally by her side, in a place where there was no pain, only eternal love.